Hey everyone, this is Christopher Luxon, the former CEO of Air New Zealand.
This is John Lee Dumas, the founder and host of Entrepreneurs on Fire.
This is Tracy Ibarra. I'm in Executive Solutions at Dell Technologies.
This is Travis Chappell, founder of Build Your Network. If you are wanting to learn how to embrace change,
To navigate through disruption as a leader,
then listen to the Leadership is Changing podcast.
The Leadership is Changing podcast.
the Leadership is Changing podcast with my good friend,
my very good friend, Denis Giannoutsos.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis Giannoutsos.
Hey, welcome to the show, Leadership is Changing. What we as leaders need to be true is that change is constant. Leaders everywhere confront similar obstacles because people are people, but everywhere you go, leaders are overwhelmed, disrupted, and under pressure. They run from email to email, meeting to meeting. Many leaders are not changing quick enough, which means they run the risk of becoming irrelevant and being left behind. The purpose of this show is taking our listeners' leadership to another level by finding their balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. I believe we don't have enough effective leaders in the world today, and if we can get the leaders to step up and lead change, then they can inspire real change. Hey listeners, it's now time to adapt in our fast-moving world, and I want to welcome you to the Ask Denis episode, which is a freestyle episode. I'm asked a question by our listeners, or I share my thoughts, insights, and experiences from working with leaders around the globe. Hey listeners, if you haven't already checked out on Facebook, the Leadership is Changing group, go ahead and do that. We'd love to see you there. I'd love for you to come along and join us in that forum. If you're on LinkedIn, and feel free to come along to the LinkedIn page, which is Leadership is Changing, and we would love to see you there also. So wonderful times ahead, and we're wanting to really grow that tribe, that community, the leaders who can talk about things like leadership is changing, change, mindsets, all sorts of things that are going on for us at the moment, so which would be wonderful to talk about. All right, so today, let's talk about today's session, which is about the accountable coach. As you know, for a lot of you, that I'm a coach and I work with the executives and leaders around the world and have done for many years, for 20 plus years in doing so, and love doing that and following my passion and helping others lead and doing what they need to do. A lot of it is about me holding people accountable and being the accountable coach with them. Actually holding people accountable to what they're committing to doing, saying, or wanting to get done. And so for a lot of us, you may hear a lot of times whereby many leaders will say, or many people would say, leaders need to be more accountable. In fact, they need to be accountable full stop. What does the dictionary say about being accountable? Required or expected to justify actions or decisions. Responsible. What does that mean? Well, in layman terms, or in other words, in my terms, it's doing what you said you would do or sign up to do and taking ownership for it. An employee or leader who is accountable will always take responsibility for his or her actions and their outcomes. Too many leaders around the globe, wherever you are today, you'll notice that too many leaders avoid being accountable. It's not that they go out of their own way to go and say, oh, I'm not going to be accountable. I'm not saying that. What I'm getting at is that a lot of them aren't accountable. They're not being held to be accountable. They're not being held to a scenario whereby holding them responsible for their actions or what they're saying, what they're doing, and so forth. And so if people are actually doing that and actually avoiding it, it's quite interesting because surveys have shown that leadership accountability is a key business driver, tool, and capability. That's right. It's really, really important to a lot of people around the globe. And so if there's lack of accountability, here are 7 things that sort of stand out if there is a lack of accountability. Within the organization, within the team, somewhere, there'll be low morale. People won't be happy. People will be gossiping. People will have voids where they'll actually make up things and start gossiping a lot. There'll be reduced engagement. Number 2 is reduced engagement. So what do they mean by that? There'll be engagement whereby people won't give their all. They may not attend meetings. They may not always turn up to things, or they may drag their feet in certain things. Priorities are unclear. People are not sure what things they should be working on first. Are we doing this or are you doing that? And so people get confused. People may not be meeting deadlines or goals. So in other words, they sort of just be moving along every day, but not actually getting out there to get those goals or deadlines achieved. The next thing would be there'd be a lack of trust. And without trust, that foundation, it's very hard for any leader to lead any organization. Attrition, it would be high. You would see people vote with their feet, people leaving the organization, moving on to go somewhere else where they can be around leaders who are accountable. People being absent from work. Yep, bringing in, being on sick leave. Now, if all of a sudden you have somebody who is an employee or a leader who comes in day out, never gets sick, but all of a sudden starts taking sick days, what's going on? Yes, medically there could be something going on, but is there something else happening as well? In other words, they may be deciding to check out. They don't really want to go to work. Why? Because there's a lack of accountability as well. But if we take accountability and ownership, that can lead to success. And there's a few things that I just want to cover off with you here that will actually help you towards leading that success as a leader. Take full ownership of your actions to make things happen. Whatever you want to have happen, taking full responsible ownership of your actions to make that thing happen. The next thing would be accept personal responsibility. Don't blame others. The number of times we've always seen what we call Teflon shoulders, somebody blaming somebody else. Now, I know that I actually had interviewed a leader from India recently on the podcast, and there was a mistake made, and the senior person wanted to know who made the mistake. But the leader I was interviewing would not tell who had made the mistake, but took the responsibility themselves. They accepted personal responsibility. They didn't blame others because it wasn't important. What was important was the fact that they had to get things fixed and moved on to help them and their customers as well. The next area I would say is be bold. Now, live life with empowerment right across all areas of your life. Be bold with it. Because you see, if you're living with life with empowerment right across all areas, it's going to play into your work life. It's going to play into your business, into your entrepreneurship, into your leadership side of things as well. The next area I would say would be growth mindset. Look for positives and potential. Don't look for negatives. Don't look for areas whereby it's really not going too well. Hey, look for the positives and the potentials. Pull people up. Have that growth mindset. I'm not saying that you need to stick your head in the sand and not be aware of what's going on where things need to be fixed. I'm not saying that, but look for positive side of things and the potential. Healthy relationships across the board. If you can have healthy relationships and be accountable to those relationships right across the board, that's going to help lead you to success as well. Be the best leader you and your organization deserves. Because you see, we get the leadership that we deserve. Now, we want you to be the best leader you and your organization deserves. Go out there and do what you need to do. So today, team, I wanted to talk to you about the accountable coach. Being the accountable leader, but also the accountable coach. And in summary, what I'm saying here is that step up and do what you're committed to doing. Number 2 is take responsibility for the actions and their outcomes. Number 3, people want accountable leaders right across the globe. And the last point there would be bring your A game to the table at all times. Hold yourself accountable to bringing your A game to the table, to the field at any time. Because you see, we don't know when we're being judged. We don't know what we need to do at a certain time. But I just know you need to be prepared and actually living every day and bringing your A game to the table, to the field at all times. Now, what I've shared with you today is some areas about what accountability is, what happens if you have lack of accountability, and then how do you take accountability and ownership and lead towards success. That's some things I've actually shared with you today. But I've got to tell you one thing, team, that for this to happen, you need an accountable coach, an accountability coach. And that's where I can come in, to come in and help you do what you need to do and hold you accountable to those things, but in a way that's constructive, in a way that's going to help lift you and grow you and help you go to new levels. Today I was in a coaching session with somebody and they just said to me, every session I have with you, Denis, it just feels like really great and you're lifting me, but you're getting me to think bigger. But you're also holding me accountable to what I'm saying, what I'm committing to doing. Not what Denis is committing to doing, what I am committing to doing. And it's the same thing with you too, listeners. If you're somebody who wants to go to new levels, if you're somebody who thinks that they want to go and try something different, a new role, a more senior role, because for a lot of people, there's the imposter syndrome. A lot of people, they're not sure what they need to do between where they are and the role that they want. But also there's a whole lot of people who have health goals, fitness goals, leadership goals, wanting to start a new business. There's all sorts of different things. But the one thing that really helps them a lot is the accountable coach. And the accountable coach is somebody that's actually going to hold you responsible to what you're saying you wanted to do. Now, I will support you by being there to listen to what you're saying. I will challenge you based on what you're actually committed to doing. And then I'm going to hold you accountable as well, based on that as well, right? So if there are certain steps that you're going to commit to doing, well, then I'm going to get beside you and help you do what you need to do to make those happen. But I'm also going to hold you accountable to those things as well. Now, the reason I'm sharing all this is that I've got some openings coming up. And if you're really interested in about becoming something, going to new levels and whatever you're doing, and you want that accountable coach, then reach out to me. Send me an email, Denis@leadingchangepartners.com, and it'll be in the show notes as well. Or send me a private message on social media. Team, it is already the first month of the year gone. We're halfway through the second month, and we're well underway with the year. For some of you, you haven't even started yet. So it's time to get on with it. It's time for you. I know that you're in lockdown. I know that you're finding it hard in COVID and so forth, but it all comes down to a mindset. And if we have that growth mindset and be positive and we can move forward and we can do things, that'll be awesome. I know it's easy for me to say and hard for some of you to do right now, but I'm looking for some high performers who want to go to the next level. And I'm going to help you do that. So feel free to reach out to me anytime you like. Now, team, the other thing too is just to remind you about the Facebook group. Leadership is Changing. Feel free to come along and join that group. There are some questions for you to answer, real simple questions, but we'd love to know a little bit more about you. And the other thing would be, if you're on LinkedIn, there is a page that is available for the Leadership is Changing community. Go ahead and join that page. We would love to see you there as well. What we as leaders know to be true is that change is constant, and change is incredibly scary, especially with the unknown and the unfamiliar territory. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing. Hey, look out for the episodes as they've been released. Download them, have a listen, put a review and a rating. Those reviews and ratings are really important for the show and where we are charting. Listen to the podcast. Talk to your friends about it, your family, your network, and get them to listen as well. Get this podcast into their hands, because there are some brilliant guests that I have as I'm interviewing them, and it'll be really important for us to actually, for everybody to get that information and have value add content that's going to help them. Real live examples. I mean, we had some feedback on the show recently, and it was somebody saying data and facts is one thing, but real live examples, like the ones that we share with the people that I interview, or the things that I share on the Ask Denis episode, somebody's saying they're loving it, and that's why the show is so popular. Love getting that kind of feedback. But if there's any feedback you'd like to give me about the show, or if there's a question you have for my guests as I interview them, or if you have a question for the Ask Denis episode, feel free to send me an email, Denis@leadingchangepartners.com. Hey leaders, thanks for joining and thanks for tuning. Get that accountable coach, And I look forward to catching up with you again real soon. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Giannoutsas. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.